welcome back to another video. Um, I don't really know what I'm going to talk about in this, but I'm doing another video, kind of in public, like my last video. Try and get more comfortable doing this. I'm not in an environment where there's like lots of people, but there's a few coming. But yeah, like got to work my way up. So because even doing this right now, like there's still fear, when I start talking and I notice other people around me, I start noticing this fear in my body, and it's like my body's signaling for me to stop doing this. But yeah. Anyway, so here I am, sat on a park bench, and we've had some pretty stormy weather for a while, and today's just like a nice day. I don't know why I'm saying this. What do I want to say today? I suppose what's on my mind is like positivity, like like when I first kind of got into this kind of spirituality thing, it was kind of about like it was linked with like psychology and philosophy, and really like it was just about living a more happy life, be more positive. Like, I mean, that's kind of why most people get into spirituality. It's like they're suffering, they're not really having a good time, and they want to feel better. But somewhere along the line, I became kind of more existential with the whole thing. Like, I kind of realized that awakening or enlightenment is not about being in like a positive state, or like this loving state. It's just the recognition of existence, really, of I am. And yeah, I kind of just neglected I kind of neglected all other areas of life in favor for pursuing the truth of what I am, or what reality is. If you're familiar with like pragmatic Dharma, or I don't know if it's Theravada in Buddhism or whatever, but I'm familiar with Daniel Ingram, and he talks about there being like three like main axes of development in life. One being morality, the other being concentration, and the other being insight or awakening. So you can train in one of these axes of development and improve your skills in this, and they all kind of help each other. But you can, like Daniel Ingram says, that you can max out the awakening axis or the insight axis. You can reach full enlightenment, right? But you can reach that without having like any kind of good sense of morality. Like it's not necessarily necessary to be loving or kind or whatever if you want to be enlightened. And I get that sense from reading Jen McKenna as well, you know. Because enlightenment is just the truth of what is. So anyone can recognize it. You don't have to be like, it's not about being perfect. It's just what the truth is. And everybody is that truth. It's just sensing into that I am, that awareness is, that consciousness is. Hey doggy. But like I said, it's like all these three axes of development kind of feed on each other. So, it's quite like clear to see how concentration, obviously helps insight, how it helps awakening. Like if you're not concentrated on the task at hand, how are you going to do the task at hand, But likewise, when we talk about like morality, it's like if you're not like kind of kind to yourself and understanding on this kind of path of awakening, if you're like really frustrated, and I've experienced this a lot, if you're really frustrated and you have this kind of gung-ho attitude of like, I've got to get enlightened, I've got to get to the truth, it can actually really hinder your progress, because you're not really being gentle on yourself or easy. It's like, I think ultimately like the best kind of technique or whatever for awakening is just letting go, just releasing, like there's definitely benefits in like putting in lots of effort, striving, but there's also lots of benefits in effortlessness, just letting go of it all, and it takes a bit of skill to know when to do one or the other, sorry for this light, it keeps, at least on my phone, it's kind of dark. So yeah, like in my own experience, I've noticed like there are times when I've been like, okay, I'm going to meditate every day, I'm going to do like a couple hours or whatever, and it's like this really effortful thing, and I've got to get the technique right. And it's like, I've got to get this done, it's just like this really kind of effortful, striving, frustrated thing. And you certainly learn from that, like if you go from either end of the extremes, you're gonna learn from both. If you just like do a lot of effortful meditation, you're gonna learn from that. And if you do a lot of kind of effortless, just letting go meditation, you're gonna learn from that. And then it's kind of just like finding the balance, what works for you in any given moment, because each moment's gonna um, call for a kind of different blend of, how much effort do you need here and how much letting go do you need here. Um, and so yeah, and then there have been times when um, hey doggy, hey going. There have been times when I've just been like, okay, I'm gonna meditate. Like, say, I still set like a routine or a intention to meditate every day. It's like, okay, I'm gonna meditate like an hour a day, or whatever. But I'm just gonna sit still and close my eyes and just kind of take an intuitive approach, not using any specific technique. But and that's been beneficial. But the kind of shadow side to that is that, yeah, sometimes you can kind of get distracted, lose focus. Yeah, so there's benefits in like just taking a kind of intuitive approach to meditation, and benefits in like, wholeheartedly putting in the effort to apply the technique. But I will say that when you're first starting out, technique is important. It's like anything. It's like you have to kind of learn the basics. You have to kind of learn like the technicality of things before you can start playing around with it. You have to start kind of learning the technicality before you can intuitively just kind of flow with it. It's like if you're playing guitar, it's like you have to learn the chords before you can just kind of like have fun with it, And like when you first start learning chords on a guitar, for instance, like it's really effortful. It's like, oh, okay, I've got to place my fingers here. Oh, now I've got to go to the next chord. And it's like, it takes a lot of effort just to switch from chords, right? But once you've, got the technical side of, your finger placements and whatever, then it's like you can just like play whatever. Or, same with, again, guitar. Like if you're playing like lead guitar, like soloing, it's like you have to learn the scales, right? And this is probably a better analogy, but you have to learn like the scales of the guitar, or you have to learn the scales in the root note that you're playing on before you can like add in your own kind of flourishes and whatever, before you can just have fun with it and go with the flow, take an intuitive approach with it, And so it's the same with like meditation. Like you kind of have to practice a technique for long enough before you can then kind of go into a more intuitive approach with it. And it's never like a clear-cut thing where it's like, okay, I've got the technique, and then it's like I'm intuitive. It's like it's always kind of going back and forth. Like you learn a technique, you try going intuitive with meditation, and then it's like, maybe you get distracted again or whatever, and you need more effort. Yeah, if this is making any sense or resonating with anybody. So I don't know what I was getting to with that, but felt like that was a tangent. I don't know. Speaking of like these axes of development, right? Um, so yeah, morality helps in meditation too, right? Because yeah, I don't think I explained this. Um, they're kind of like so morality training is just kind of like living a good life. How everybody kind of sees as living a good life. Having enough money to sustain yourself, having friends you can talk to, being healthy, eating nutritious food, exercising, having a work that you're passionate about, these kinds of things. It's just like a healthy, good life, and it will, it's a healthy thing for a human, right? And obviously that is going to impact how your meditation is going, right? If you're more healthy physically, mentally, and socially, then that's gonna boost your likelihood of being in a good mood, which is going to be beneficial when you sit down to meditate, because you're already going to have like this calm mind, Whereas on the inverse, if you're like doing a whole lot of immoral shit like stealing and like just kind of neglecting your health and lying to people and shit and all this kind of shit, then when you sit down to meditate, you're gonna have a lot of thoughts like, oh shit, like I've done this, oh I haven't done that, and it's gonna be hard to concentrate on awakening. So yeah, all these things tie in with each other, and it's important to be honest with yourself. And I am guilty of this, have been a lot in the past, where I have deceived myself into thinking like, nah, I don't need to work on like my social life, I don't need to work on getting money or whatever, it's just all this awakening thing. But if awakening and enlightenment is truly like the thing that you want most, the thing that means the most to you and brings you the most fulfillment, this kind of work, then there are gonna be times when it's like other aspects of yourself are kind of calling you to look at other areas of your life, and it may seem in the short term like a distraction from enlightenment, or like you're going on a different path. It's like, okay, I'm not going to meditate for a while, I'll go fucking get a job, or I'll go hang out with people, go socialize more. It may seem like a distraction from the path or whatever, but it is actually something that is helping it. And that's kind of sometimes hard to see. It's something that you don't really want to look at, because you just want to, get this meditation enlightenment thing done. But so, what I was talking about here is positivity. I became very cynical, nihilistic, and this is common when people are getting into these kinds of awakening things. It's like you start seeing life as meaningless and no purpose. And like, it's true, but if there's no meaning, then there's no meaning to be negative. Do you know what I mean? Like, true meaninglessness is not associated with negativity, because attributing negativity to something is meaningful. So it's kind of like true awakening is like meaninglessness and nihilism, but it's like the true nihilism, it's like most people are, when they, if they get into nihilism and existentialism or whatever, they have a lot of like negative connotations and associations with it. Start to have this kind of pessimistic outlook on life. And the reason being is because the truth is not really, to kind of be in the truth is not really suited for this world, you know, like the kind of society that you're in is like, to kind of realize that there's no purpose or realize that there's no meaning. Like, the people around you in society and the culture and whatnot, you know, they value these things that you have now seen as kind of like just fabrications of the mind, seen as like not entirely true, you know. And so that's why, like, if you get into kind of like nihilism, it's like it can be like kind of really pessimistic, but you know, and a lot of people can see this too, that nihilism is actually has a lot of positives, because it's like, well, there's no meaning to life, you know, there's no point. And so if there's no point to doing anything, there's no purpose or no meaning, it means you can do anything, right? If it's like, oh, nihilism, we're all going to die, what's the point? It's like, you can either take that on a negative attitude or a positive. You know, it's like, oh, nihilism, no point. It's like, well, that's a good thing, isn't it? You know, because it's like all the things that you felt afraid to do, all the things that you want to do in life, but, you know, all these things that you want to do, but you felt held back on. It's like, well, if life is truly meaningless, and it's like, you can just do whatever the fuck you want. Just follow your authenticity, what you want, you know what I mean? And so people, when people have this kind of pessimistic outlook, and they get into nihilism or awakening or whatever, it's because their ego's still intact, and it's like one half of you realizes that there's no meaning, but another half of you is still holding on to that. And so, like, meaninglessness is, I don't know how to explain this. You know, nihilism can be pessimistic or negative because you haven't completely embodied it. Once you completely embody nihilism, and I'm not saying that I have, but once you do, then that's true freedom and true happiness, really. Yeah. You see, nihilism or whatever, it goes beyond positive and negative. I think there's absurdism as well, which I'm not really too familiar about, but I think absurdism is probably more aligned with what I'm kind of saying here. Where absurdism is kind of like nihilism, but kind of like more positive stance, where it's like, yeah, okay, nothing means anything, but who cares? Let's make meaning anyway and just have fun. So I suppose that's kind of the direction I'm going in at the moment, because yeah, I was very cynical and whatnot, and yeah. Um, but here's the thing: is like, if nothing means anything, then you have the choice to be feeling positive or feeling negative, right? So why would you choose to feel negative? See, if you truly realize that there's no meaning, then you wouldn't have a hard time being positive. You know, if that makes sense? If everything was meaningless, you could see that this negativity that you're holding on to is has no meaning. So you just switch to positivity. I think like a lot of us feel like the kind of darkness we feel and the kind of hard emotions, the difficult emotions, we feel like that the perception that we're in when we're having these kind of dark emotions or thoughts, we feel like that perception is more true than the perception that we're in when we're feeling positive or have a positive outlook on life. And that's interesting to just recognize, I think. When you're in a negative perception, you're kind of like, my life is fucked, and you're fabricating the story of who you are and what life is, and you're like, I'm this, you're perceiving yourself as like a victim in this like harsh world, and it's like, I've been through this, I'm struggling through this, nothing's fair, and it feels so like real and true. Whereas when you're in a perception where it's like, I feel kind of relaxed and just like, it's a nice day, like having some positive interactions, the people are nice, people are loving, this is great. It doesn't hold as much weight in terms of like how you perceive it to be true, like, I don't know if that makes any sense or if that resonates, but that's what I've noticed when I'm like feeling depressed. Like the thoughts and perceptions I'm having when I'm depressed or whatever, or angry, they feel more true than when I'm happy. So, but where is the evidence for that? Every day I go through so many different perceptions and outlooks on who I am and what life is. Like so many. Be aware of this for yourself. Like recognize in your life, like throughout each day, how many kind of different perceptions you're entering into. One perception you have where you feel top of the world, anything's possible, then maybe like 10 minutes later you feel like nothing's fair, life is shit, there's no hope for the future or whatever. It's like if you can like enter into these perceptions, so many different ones that are fabricating a self and a world into existence, if you are more aware of this happening, then you can start to see that it's like, okay, well, none of them are true. Or you could equally say that all of them are true. That whichever one you're in is serving some kind of purpose, and it is valid to hold as true in that moment, but it doesn't signify any absolute truth. It doesn't signify, it may just be something useful or skillful to be perceiving, but it doesn't mean it's true. Or, again, yeah, you can perceive it as, this is the truth of the moment. But, it's just whatever's called for in that moment. Because it's like, maybe you feel dissatisfied and frustrated. Maybe you need to feel that in order to get what you want, you know what I mean? Maybe you need to feel that in order to progress or, get on track for the next thing or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Doesn't mean it's true, but it may be purposeful and useful. If that makes sense. So yeah, I feel like in this phase of my life right now, it's kind of like I want to choose to be happy now. Because some people might say it's like, well, if everything's meaningless, why would you choose to be happy over choosing to be negative? Simply just because it feels good, It reduces pain and suffering. You feel better in the body and the mind. Like, there's more. It's just, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes, maybe having a cry feels good too, But yeah, like, I don't know what else to say. It's kind of like nature wants you to be a certain way. It's like that's just built into the game of life. Like, this kind of desire to be more happy, be more healthy, to connect with people, to spread love and joy. That's what life wants. That's life's mechanisms. That is how life is programmed. It doesn't mean that it's true necessarily. Like, it doesn't. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to explain this, but I mean, like, if we take like solipsism for an example, even if you enter into this kind of solipsistic viewpoint perception, where you kind of see that you have no evidence for anybody else having their own subjective conscious experience, and it's like, okay, this is all that is my experience, this field of experience is all that there is and the only thing there is. Even if you kind of abide in that, there are still kind of these forces operating within this dream or within this, solipsistic bubble or whatever, that are driving you towards living what's conventionally seen as healthy and helpful. So you're going to go help the world and be loving, and then you hear some solipsists say like, well, if it's just you, why are you being so helpful and loving, if no one else exists? And I think it is just that this dream this field of experience, how it operates, how it works. It has these forces that just that drive you to connect, but that doesn't necessarily mean that others exist. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But either way, there's this force driving you to connect and be healthy and whatnot. At least I can speak in my own experience. So, I think I'll call that a day for the video. Let me know in the comments if you have any thoughts or literally anything, I would love to connect. Yeah, I'd just love to know what kind of things you find valuable in life or in these videos or whatnot. And if you want to connect with me directly, you can message me on Instagram at Jasper_Kennedy_. And yeah, thanks for watching. Have a nice day.